crow lands on a fence post. You've walked past this corner 100 times, maybe 1,000. You don't notice the bird. You never do. But the bird notices you. It's been noticing you for 3 years. Most people believe that when an animal looks at a human face, it sees something generic, a shape, a silhouette, a potential threat, or a food source, nothing more specific than that. We assume we are invisible to them, interchangeable, that the wild world moves around us without registering us, not who we are, not what we look like, not what we once did. That assumption is wrong, and the evidence of how wrong it is, that evidence should disturb you slightly. In 2008, researchers at the University of Washington conducted an experiment that, even now, feels almost too strange to be science. They put on masks, specific distinct human faces, molded latex, expressionless. And wearing those masks, they captured wild crows on a university campus. They banded them, weighed them, released them. Then they waited. Weeks passed, months. The researchers returned to the same campus, some wearing the dangerous mask, some wearing a neutral control mask, some wearing no mask at all. The crows responded differently, specifically, individually, consistently, to the face that had captured them. They scolded, they dive-bombed, they followed, they called other crows, not to the neutral mask, not to the bare face, only to that face. The researchers had never interacted with these birds before the capture. One encounter, one face. Months later, recognition. But here is what the researchers hadn't fully expected. The crows that were never captured, crows that had simply watched the event, they also learned the face. They warned each other. They taught their young. The information spread through the population like a rumor in a small town. For a long time, neuroscience assumed that facial recognition, true facial recognition, the kind that holds meaning across time, was something that required the neocortex, the human-specific layer, the newest, most complex part of the brain. Animals, the thinking went, simply didn't have enough of it. Then researchers started actually looking. What they found was uncomfortable, not because animals were primitive, because they weren't. Sheep can recognize up to 50 individual human faces, not shapes, faces. They can hold those faces in memory for more than 2 years. When shown a photograph of a familiar face beyond a person they had not seen in months, their brainwave activity shifted in measurable ways. Recognition, emotional registration, the same region of the sheep brain that activates during facial recognition maps closely onto the region in the human brain that does the same thing. Evolution, it turns out, didn't invent facial recognition for us. We inherited it. When a dog sees its owner return after 6 months, the joy appears immediate, explosive, unmistakable. Most people explain this as scent, the smell, the familiar chemical signature. But researchers began covering scent trails, controlling for smell, presenting photographs, presenting silhouettes, presenting faces at distances where scent was impossible. Dogs still distinguished, still responded differently to familiar faces than to strangers, even in two-dimensional images, even on screens. One study found that dogs process human faces in a dedicated region of their brain, a region that activates differently for familiar faces than for unfamiliar ones. Not just human versus non-human, known versus unknown. They are reading you, building a map of your face, storing it. The research suggests they may be storing something else too, in your emotional expressions. Dogs exposed to angry human faces for repeated periods show elevated stress hormones. Not from the tone of voice, not from body language, from the face alone. They remember what your face looked like when it was frightening. At this point, the scientific question shifts. It stops being, can they, and becomes, why do they? Facial recognition in the animal kingdom is not ornamental. It is not incidental. It evolved under pressure, which means it solved a problem. In a world without language, without writing, without records, the face is the archive. It is the only persistent identity a creature can carry. To remember a face is to remember a history, a relationship, a threat, a resource. The crow that remembers your face knows something true about you, something that required no words to communicate and no document to preserve. It knows what you did, and it will remember. Research suggests wild corvids can carry grudges or favors for up to 17 years, the span of a childhood, the length of a career. 17 years. That crow on the fence post may have known something about a human who no longer remembers the encounter. Who has changed jobs, moved cities, aged beyond recognition to other humans. And yet the bird holds the original record, unchanged. Here's the part that most people don't sit with long enough. We have spent centuries believing that the defining feature of human consciousness is that we notice, that we observe the natural world and it simply moves around us, indifferent and unaware. But the research does not support this. You have been observed, cataloged, assessed, by animals you walked past without a second thought, by birds that watched you from telephone wires, by horses that studied your expression through a fence. The natural world has not been indifferent to your face. It has been paying attention. What changes, what fundamentally shifts when you absorb that? Somewhere right now, a crow is landing on a fence post. It is not thinking in language. It has no concept of time the way we do. But somewhere in the architecture of its mind, in a neural region old beyond any human civilization, it holds a face. Maybe yours. You passed it once. You barely looked up. You were thinking about something else entirely. The crow was not. It filed the information, quietly, without ceremony, and it is still carrying it, long after you forgot the moment ever happened. Perhaps the unsettling truth is not that animals remember human faces. Perhaps the unsettling truth is that we assumed they wouldn't, that we moved through the living world as though we were the only ones watching, when all along we were also being watched, remembered, known.